This is the Brandon Smith Show, and I am your host, Brandon Smith, and the entire purpose of this show is one singular thing, and that's, of course, to help you live a life that much more free from dysfunction. And so this is one of our leadership therapy shows, so I've got my wonderful, amazing, talented, almost always guesses the right answer producer, Whitney Mendoza with us.
This is my favorite part of the show.
Which part? When I compliment you?
Every bit of that, yeah.
And you have to wait like 2 weeks for it to happen.
Yeah, maybe I should just call you, and if you could do the show intro, that'd be great.
And then I would compliment you.
Yes.
I'm mixing in some new compliments.
You are. I'm very impressed.
See, I gotta keep it going, so it keeps you on your toes.
New bobbleheads, new shirts.
Shirts.
Yeah.
New shirts, new me. That's right. So for our show today, we are going to talk about something that sounds on the surface as a negative thing or a depressing thing, but actually doesn't have to be.
True.
So we're going to talk about the 3 ways to rebound when you're fired. Okay. So that day has come. You maybe didn't anticipate it. And
maybe you did.
Maybe you did. But often cases we don't. We think everything's cruising fine. And then all of a sudden there's a knock on the door. And they say, "Hey, Whitney, I'd like to talk to you for a minute." Folks, if you didn't see Whitney's eyes, her eyes got really big when I did that.
Oh,
Whitney, I really appreciate all the service that you've given us over the years. It's
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were really giving me a compliment.
It's been really wonderful, but unfortunately, we're eliminating your position effective immediately. I was going to say effectively next week, but I just decided immediately.
Eliminating is such a strong word.
Just often the case, right? We don't. That, by the way, folks, if you don't know, the eliminating position, that's a strategy when we want to get rid of the person, but there may be legal issues, so we just get rid of the position. We eliminate the position, and then that way we can say, sorry, the position's no longer there. So then that's happened, right? And not that I would ever fire Whitney, but that was fun to watch her reaction.
Thank you.
She looks very unhappy, folks. She's depressed. She's been fired. Our hearts go out to her. So now we think about what are the 3 things that you can do to rebound. You kind of been knocked down. You weren't expecting it. You got sucker punched. What can you do? So Whitney, on these shows, whenever I do my list of stuff, her eyes are rolling. She knows where this is going. I love to see if you can guess what were maybe some things that people should do. What do you think? Anything come to mind for you?
When we talked about this topic.
And by the way, I write it down on paper. And then and she always tries to copy off my paper like you would in any quiz, I suppose. And so now I cover it up with my phone.
And I don't know why, because I cannot read your handwriting.
I do that on purpose, too.
I think I'm going to develop like laser eye senses, but it hasn't happened yet. I'm going to look at it the way that I would hope I would look at it.
Okay.
I'm going to say a lot of it has to do with your mindset on the situation. So it's kind of like the phrase,
I like where you're going with this.
Where you see a problem, create an opportunity. I think if you take that outlook, it can change the situation. Because this is really hard, right? Again, and you depending on where you're at in life, you're thinking of your family and how are you going to be able to make the house payment and all these things. There's so many emotions that when you are let go through your mind.
Yeah.
But after and I think that, that's fine. That's fine to feel those feelings. And then I think, though, you have to at some point come to the realization that you have to go out and find something else.
Yeah.
And why can't that something else be better?
I think that's really healthy. And you were talking, I had immediate flashbacks to earlier in my career, after I'd gotten my therapy degree and practiced clinical therapy for a while. Then I went to corporate. But before I went back and got my MBA, I worked at a company, and it had gone through a couple rounds of layoffs while I was there. And so at one point we had a training department, and then by the end of it, I was the only person left in the training department. So I was the training department. And during one of those rounds of layoffs, they hired consultants to do all the layoffs. Okay. And they brought me into the room and they said, okay, we're going to have you help us with this. Of course, I thought I'm getting fired, But they said, we're going to have you help us with this. So what your job is to, when someone's gotten laid off, your job is to walk back to their desk with them, help them gather their things and leave. So I don't know what you call me, the bouncer. I don't know what I was in this case. Okay. You're not laughing at me. The idea of me being a bouncer is funny. Humorous.
A little bit.
I suppose so. So anyway, the way they did it was, because I've seen this done so many different ways. I can't say I've ever seen it done well, but I've seen it done lots of ways. The way this particular method was done was we're gonna call. Everyone's gonna come in the morning, Monday morning, not know what's going on, and then we're gonna kind of pull and ask people to go to certain rooms, and there'll be a consultant sitting there. Consultant will deliver the message to them, and then they'll leave. Well, what really struck me in that process was, in the moment of being laid off, because I ended up being part of 3 or 4 of those. People responded very differently to it. It was kind of like all stages of grief. So some people immediately were like in denial. They were like, no, this can't be happening. Mm-hmm. And they just got up and left. They were like, no. Other people were like, let's negotiate. They were like, I'm sure we can work out a deal. Let's figure this out. Other people were angry. They were mad. They were pissed off. They were like throwing stuff down and stomping around. And then one person I remember, they were like, thank you. I've been wanting to quit for years. I just couldn't get enough. I didn't have a good reason or really anything other. And I've always wanted to travel, and now I'm going to go travel.
Yeah.
This is like my excuse. And speaking of dysfunction, one of the individuals they let go, they had already gone through 1 round of layoffs, and they had fired this person. Well, a few months after that, they hired her back. And then the next round of layoffs, fired her again. So she got fired twice in 1 year.
Oh, goodness.
Isn't that horrible? Horrible. So it's an interesting thing because it's rarely done well. Usually it's a surprise. And in the moment, people react very differently to it. So there's no one right way to react to this. Everyone has a different reaction. But what we're talking about isn't so much how you react to it in the moment. It's what do you do to rebound?
Yeah.
Right? And part of it is kind of mindset, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So I'm going to start us off on our first one. My first recommendation.
Let's do it.
Okay. So so this is kind of like a choose your own adventure recommendation because it has 2 different paths you can take depending upon the particular situation for you. If you've been in a job that's been super painful and super stressful, and you might or you've been doing the same job for a long time, okay, it would be really, really beneficial for you to take a vacation. And now it doesn't have to mean you go to Turks and Caicos and spend thousands and thousands of dollars. But it could mean that you just go travel and visit friends or family. And the reason why I'm recommending this is you need to take a step back to allow you to reflect, process everything that's not only happened, but also process really what you want, what matters to you.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you get so caught up in something, you don't realize, oh my gosh, I didn't really like that anyway. Mm-hmm. That's not what I want again. That's not at all what I want right. Making me cough.
I was going to say, that was a first on the show.
First time I've ever coughed on this show.
Okay, can I share another story? Do we have time?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it's more like a movie recommendation. So there's this movie that Isaac and I watched, and it was kind of similar to the story you just shared where I guess step 1 of dysfunction would the CEO would hire someone outside to come and do the layoffs.
Yeah.
And so these people have been working at this company forever, and of course they're meeting with someone they've never met before and will never meet with again to tell them you're fired. It's got George Clooney in it. Great
Up in
movie.
the air.
That's it. Look at you. Well, okay.
Just like that, folks. Again, I've told people that I said this right once today. Don't let this look fool you. There's speed right here. There is some speed right here.
You're derailing my story.
Okay.
It's so good.
Sorry.
You probably know the scene I'm going to tell then.
Yes.
So, okay. George Clooney. I forget the other guy's name. But anyway, he's sitting down, he's firing someone, and he's looking over his resume, and the guy's like, what am I supposed to do? How can I put my kids through college? He's very upset, as you understandably could be. And George is like, well, I see here, that you know how to cook. Because he's telling the guy, you have on the resume here, this is actually what you went to school for, is to be a chef. And then you wound up here at this whatever nothing company. And so he asked the question, what did they first pay you to stop going after your dream? And Isaac and I both were like, oh my gosh, right? Because that's such a turning point. If you look at it that way, as this opportunity to, now I can go do what I want to do, whatever that is. Be it completely different than what you're currently doing, starting your own business, whatever you want to do. If you look at it, and you could see in the movie, it's a turning point for this individual that's getting fired.
I'm loving that you are kind of holding on to this banner of optimism and turning this into an opportunity. I love it. I want you to hold on to that for the rest of this show.
Got it.
Because I think that's a
Clutch.
super important perspective and really hard for people to see.
Yeah.
And particularly depending upon the season of life and career.
True.
I mean, when you talk about what do I really want to do next, that tends to not happen as much when we get past kind of in our 40s and 50s. People might say, I've always wanted to go on, move somewhere, and they might change their lifestyle, but not necessarily career. However, it could be an opportunity to change career. So I think one is, if it's been a very painful experience or you've been doing it for a long time, take a vacation. Give yourself 2 to 3 weeks to just step away and really reevaluate what matters to you.
Mm-hmm.
In many ways, reclaim your identity. Yeah, and
that's good.
I think that's really important.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I said it's a choose your own adventure. Let's say you say to yourself, no, I kind of know what I want to do. I don't feel that down and out. Maybe I've only been in this job for 2 years. In which case, then the first step really can be, go ahead and start on the next day, thinking about your resume and thinking about who you can have coffee with and lunch, and don't sit around. The last thing you want to do is sit around by yourself. So either vacation and do something purposeful that way with the intent of reclaiming your identity and recharging and renewing, or get back in the saddle. I had a guy who spoke with me years ago, and he had long since retired, but he had done turnarounds his whole career. And what he was proudest of, every turnaround he'd ever been, so he'd go into a company that was broken, he'd fix it, turn it around, make it working again. He was 23 for 23 in all the turnarounds he'd ever done.
Wow.
He'd been a former kind of a paratrooper in the Army and Harvard MBA, and kind of this no-nonsense guy. He said, but what he's proudest about the most was he never got fired. I mean, had a lawsuit filed against him one time for wrongful termination. And he had to terminate a lot of people. And his methodology was, he said, I never fired anyone on a Friday. And I always would, when I let somebody go, the way I would do it is, we would already had all these conversations leading up to it. So there was no surprise. This was like the third or fourth conversation. So they knew this was an issue. And I would tell them, okay, this isn't working. But before you do anything, he would do it in the morning. He would say, I want you to go back to your office and think about kind of what you want to do next. Spend a couple hours on that. Don't tell anybody what's happened. Come back with me this afternoon and we'll talk about a plan. And I'm going to help you figure out where you want to go next and how I can help you. And he said the difference is, what happens, most companies, they fire people on Fridays. They don't help them think about what they want to do next. And they go home and they're all upset and they're scared and they tell their family and their family gets mad, and by Monday there's a lawsuit. He said, I would spend time with them on a Monday or Tuesday and do this, help them come up with a plan. And then on Tuesday or Wednesday, where the next day is, they can actually hit the streets and start emailing people resumes, having coffees. They can do something to fill that gap.
That's good.
So you might be in a case where you don't want to take a vacation. You know what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead and hit the road, hit the pavement the next day and start setting up meetings. Just don't stay at home and watch TV.
Yeah.
So that's, I would say that's kind of our step one is either take a vacation to reset, reclaim your identity, or start kind of moving forward a little bit. Okay. So that's kind of our option on kind of our first step. So we're moving into break. When we come back from break, I'm going to give you the next 2 of our 3 things you can do to rebound in case you've been laid off. You've been let go. What do I do next? There's definitely a path forward that will work for you. So stay tuned. Hey everyone, this is Brandon. I want to take a moment to thank you for listening to my show. We wouldn't have a show without you. In an effort to get you the topics, guests, and resources that'll make your life better, I need your help. Go to theworkplacetherapist.com, www.theworkplacetherapist, all one word, .com, and take the listener survey that's all about you and your needs. We'll be giving away a $50 Amazon gift card to one lucky listener. I look forward to hearing from you. Let's eliminate dysfunction together. Welcome back from the break. This is the Brandon Smith Show, and of course, I'm your host, Brandon Smith, and today we're talking about the ways to rebound from a layoff. The 3 ways, specifically. And the first one was kind of a variation of either take a vacation to reclaim your identity, particularly important if you've been in a situation for a very long time and or a very abusive situation. So you feel a little beat down or you feel a little stuck. Good way to kind of reset and get some different perspective, or just hit the pavement the next day and start kind of going out there and just get yourself moving. With some conversations, even if it's just coffee. Okay, so that's our first step. Okay, are you ready for step 2?
I'm ready. Number 2. Here we go.
Number 2. Do you want to guess? Every time I do this, folks, she looks over my paper, but like I said, I'm covering it up. But she really wants to try and guess.
I'm gonna guess.
Okay.
I'm gonna guess one because if nothing else, this will be a good tip.
I like it. Come in with confidence.
Okay. Get ready before this day comes.
That is true. That's true. It's actually not on my list.
Okay. Well, it should be.
Oh, that's probably true.
Right? Because a lot of it has to do with the fact that you're prepared.
That is, I would agree with you. We have talked about that on other shows, on the do not to do list that we've done before.
Yes.
We did a do not list a couple weeks ago. We've done a do not list beginning of the year. And it always says, hey, one of the things you don't want to do is stop networking.
I have another one.
Yeah.
Don't go into your job interviews, maybe not even with your network, complaining about how you got let go. Meaning, don't talk badly.
That's not on my list either, but that's also a really good one. It's a good one. Well, no, this was... that's a really good... I agree. I'm not disagreeing.
Okay, good.
I'm not disagreeing.
Number 4 and 5. On the list now.
Those can be number 4 and 5. So mine is right around that season of rebounding, and then Whitney has nicely sandwiched that. She's bookended it. She put before the rebounding happens, be prepared, and then after the rebounding and you're interviewing, make sure you have it goes back to positivity, right? Have a positive attitude about that past experience. Don't be like, well, the last place they're not nice. Don't ever talk to anybody there. Horrible experience. Don't do that, right? Because to that end, when you're interviewing, employers are also wondering, how did it work out in the last place? Because they know the way you treated your last relationship is likely the way you're going to treat this one, right? So if you had a really nasty breakup and burned the house down before you left, nasty divorce, and fought big custody battles, they're not going to want to be like, oh, well, I'm sure she'll play nice with me this time. They'll be like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. So they want to see amicable.
Yeah.
Amicable. So if you don't have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. But within the season of rebounding, the first one was about kind of what do you do immediately after the event. The second one is I really encourage everyone who's in this position and season of life to do a solid inventory of 3 things. And we've talked about this before on the show, but it's worth coming back to every once in a while. Strengths. So you gotta be geeky here and think Venn diagram. Okay, our 3 circles: strengths, passions, and interests. And the last one is kind of purpose. Anything that kind of really charges you up, kind of a need in the world you want to attach to. Mm-hmm. So it's a good opportunity to take a step back and say, okay, what are my strengths? What do I bring to the table? What are the things that I'm excited about, that I'm passionate about? And then the last one is purpose. Is there something that really charges me up? And use that to kind of either clarify or reset what you want to go for next. I think that's a really important exercise to do. And I think that while the purpose part and the passions part you can do on your own, and those will come out on your own, the strengths part, you need to get feedback. So you talk to your friends, you talk to your family members, you talk to past coworkers and say, hey, what would you, if someone asked you what my strengths were, what would you tell them? And you can even do that via email. Just send them a little email. As a plug for this, if you go to the University of Michigan, they have a center called the Center for Positive Organizational Scholarship. Okay, and they have a tool called the Reflected Best Self. The Reflected Best Self. And if you just Google Reflected Best Self, University of Michigan, you can get that tool. It's a PDF. I think it's like $6 or $5. It's not much money. And it gives you instructions on how to email folks and ask them for feedback. And it's only focused on strengths. It's focused purely on when you're at your best, what does that look like? And ask them to write back and tell about a time in which you were at your best.
Nice.
So they write back and tell a story about when you were at your best. Here's why I love this for rebounding. First, you get great data. Like, hey, not only am I learning from people what they see as me being good, you're also getting a sense of what context in which you're good at, right? So they'd say, hey, Whitney, when you're on shows, it's super fun because you engage and you make funny faces at the camera and you keep Brandon on track, and I could go on and on, which Whitney would love right now.
You're not firing me though, right?
No, I'm not firing. No,
Okay,
this is
good.
this is I'm not. This is not
Okay,
a setup
good.
for a firing. I already fired you. Now I'm giving you positive feedback. See how that works?
I like the feedback.
So,
Thank you.
but the second part about it is to this kind of point that Whitney and I are kind of playing around with, though. Imagine you've been laid off and you just got 20 emails from people talking about times when you were at your best.
Mm-hmm.
How could that not help you feel good?
Yeah.
Right?
I was thinking that.
Hey, like I am actually like pretty competent.
Yeah.
Like there are times when I do not suck, right? There are times when I do not suck and I'm good, and I've got email evidence for that, because that's important. Not only does it give you good information, it charges you up, because when you show up in that interview, if you're like, well, nobody really likes me, and I ultimately is going to be fired anyway, but I'm sure we can do this for a little while. That's not going to go well. You want to come in with confidence, knowing you're good, knowing you can add value.
Yeah.
Because that's going to come across. Part of that decision in an interview is going to be how the interviewer feels when they're with you, how you make them feel. Not just your skill set, but also how do you feel. So that would be my second one. Do a good inventory. Reflective best self is a great, very tactical tool you can do. I mean, anyone can do that anytime, but it's really great in the season of kind of resetting. Okay. I've been doing a lot of talking. Any thoughts or reactions to that?
I got some emails I'm going to send to people.
Yeah. I have a feeling I'll get home to my home office and there'll be an email from Whitney tell me about a time when I was at my best.
Well,
And another. And
what you
another.
said earlier kind of counts, but I got some other people.
With some other people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Make me feel good.
Make you feel good. But there's nothing wrong with that. What makes people feel a little awkward about that exercise, by the way, is that you're not asking for the other side of the coin. You're not saying, well, how about times when I could improve, or I wasn't that good? What are ways I can get better? The entire tool is designed to just pull out when you're at your best. It's not designed to look at weaknesses. It's designed just to look at strengths.
I like it, Brandon.
And again, tactically, when you're interviewing, almost every job, even some senior jobs, you get the standard interview question. So what are your strengths? That's a standard interview question. You're going to get asked that question. So it's really important that you can give an answer to that question and not just say, I'm a good communicator. Right? I care too much. Right? Those are not good answers. Like, be able to come up with specific ones and say, hey, in fact, I asked folks this, and this is the kind of feedback that I've gotten before. That will go much further. Okay. So are you ready for my third?
Number 3.
Number 3.
Yes.
So the first one we have was take a vacation or hit the pavement. Second one was, and these are not mutually exclusive, but use this as a time to take an inventory. And the third one is, so now that you've done this, all right, so I've reset, got my inventory. Now I'm ready to start getting kind of back in saddle with things. This is going to sound obvious, but I got a subtlety to this. So you want to then start setting up. You do this by setting up coffees. So hopefully you like coffee. If you don't, find tea. But coffee shops are a great place to do this. So you want to do this and set this up with either friends, family members, people that might be able to kind of help you in terms of kind of finding something next. But here's the subtlety that I want to add to this that people often forget. I want you to go through, so in addition to kind of your live network, which is your friends and family members and other people you're connected to in your community, I want you to go through all the past, make an inventory of all the past coworkers you've ever worked with in the past that you loved working with. I want a list of your all-time favorites, even if they were at a company that let you go or they moved to another company, because those people, if you enjoyed working with them, then you likely share the same values as that person.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're happy with where they're at, that would be a good cultural fit for you. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So I often will recommend that even when we think about folks that were in military service for the first part of their career, and they retire, because most folks retire from military service in their kind of could be mid to late 30s, maybe even early 40s, and then they've still got 20 years left on a second career. And I often recommend, I say, go find companies that have a lot of veterans. Because if a lot of veterans are at that company, there's probably some similarities between how you function in the military and how they function in the civilian world, enough that would feel comfortable, feel like home. If there's no veterans there, it may be a very uncomfortable transition for you. You may just think all these people are crazy in how they operate. So finding those similar value sets. So you do it by finding people that have common backgrounds to you, or people you enjoyed working with. So I'd start there, because that's going to be your easiest path forward. And there's other stuff like resumes and all that, but we all know all that stuff. Some of these subtle things we often forget. Okay. What do you think? That's my list of 3.
Good tips, Brandon. Good tips.
Okay. All right. Trying to think if I've left anything out.
I think I know what we left out that we should get to in the last couple of minutes here.
Okay.
So great tips on how to rebound if you get fired. Should we transition into our dysfunction of the week?
Oh, we didn't do that. We were going to open with the dysfunction of the week, and we didn't do it.
Yeah. We've got to. Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't do one, and we're going to do it at the very end.
Okay.
So here it is. So those of you hopefully stayed all the way here to the end. And we have some written ones, but there was one I heard on the radio recently, and a caller had called in, and I want to share this. This is our dysfunction of the week, which we're going to flavor in all of our shows to hopefully make you realize that it could be a lot worse in your workplace.
And I don't know this one you're about to tell. I'm a little nervous.
I might have shared this with you before off air.
Okay.
So I was driving into an event that we were at and that we did a live show at, and I heard a listener call into this radio station. And the listener called in with this story. And she said, okay, so I work at this workplace, and I got a coworker. And my coworker, the fine person, fine guy, but he has gas issues. Okay. Yes, you heard me correctly.
No.
Gas. G-A-S.
Oh, no.
Issues. As in, he's pretty stinky. Okay. And it's an issue. So it's not like, he maybe occasionally eats food that causes, it's an issue. Okay. So it's to the point that he knew it was an issue and he went to go see a specialist. Okay.
Oh,
right.
no.
So, all right. So we see how
You're
that's
making me really nervous.
That's a little bit uncomfortable as it is, right? But it gets worse. So the specialist, as any good specialist would, says, okay, well, we need to go for some testing.
Oh.
So I need a specimen. So he of course naturally agrees, because we got to get a specimen to do testing. But he decided the best, most efficient place to take the specimen was at work. So he got some of his poop, okay, and he put it in a poop bag that they provided him, and then another bag that they provided him to seal it up that's probably got all like the patient information on it. You've probably seen bags like that before, specimen bags. And then, but it was in the middle of the day, and you can't just have this sitting around, right? And we got to preserve the specimen. So he stuck it in the break room refrigerator. And it sat there for the rest of the day for everyone to see his poop bag in the break room refrigerator.
Look, this is why you don't steal anyone's lunch out of there either,
This is why
okay?
break room
Stick to
refrigerators
what your name is
are
on.
disgusting. And it was funny because she called the radio station and she was talking about this, and they said, well, what'd you do? And she said, and she didn't mean to make this pun, but she did. She said, we cleaned the crap out of that refrigerator the next day. Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
So wrong.
So, good story on how workplace dysfunctions alive and well, folks. And they happen in break room refrigerators. So watch out next time you go to the break room fridge. You never know what you might find. So thank you for listening to our show. Hopefully you found it helpful, and if not helpful, at least mildly entertaining. We strive for that every week. And thank you, Whitney, for joining me today.
You're welcome. Anytime.
You're not fired, by the way.
Thank you.
Not today. We'll see how it goes next week.
Thank you.
Keep up the fight every week, folks. Joining us as we fight dysfunction. Follow us on Facebook.com/Brandon Smith, WPT for Workplace Therapist. Twitter @the WP Therapist. And of course, just simply Google the workplace therapist and you'll go to my website and you get all this content and it's free and it's for you. It's there to make your life better. And I can't think of any reason why you shouldn't go there. And if you haven't filled out my listener survey, please do. We are getting more and more listeners filling that out every day, and we need your help because our goal is to make this show work for you, help you, make things better for you and your life better. And the only way we're going to know that is by having you spend 3 to 5 minutes filling that thing out. And of course, we're going to give an Amazon gift card away to some lucky listener, so you could be that person. You could be the lucky one. So until our next show, have a great week and an awesome life.